This November, hundreds of Republicans are up for re-election, and with their goodwill run out, many have given up hope. Republicans worry their re-elections won't survive Trump's presidency. There's mourning in the Republican Party, and under the leadership of Donald Trump, their party is weak and scared and powerless. And now, many are asking, if we have another 4 years of Donald Trump, will there even be a Republican Party?
Will there be a Republican Party? It's actually a question that probably keeps a few members of the GOP up at night, including former Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, who said this about his traditionally red state from New York Magazine, quote, Flake believes there is no chance Trump will win a second term in office, and he accepts with resignation that Democrats are likely to assume power at all levels throughout his state. He added that the degree to which the party will look inward would be determined by the degree of Trump's loss. A massive rejection, he said, was the best shot we have to change what the Republican Party has become. There's no future with this, he said. Millennials and women and minorities are running away from the party, and there are just a few aging white males like myself to keep the party afloat. We've got to change. We're back with Donna, John, and Jason. John, you went to, I think a couple weeks ago now, the Lincoln Project headquarters and talked to them about, you know, this Morning in America ad is just sort of the stuff of folklore in the Republican Party. They have weaponized it against Republicans in a pretty interesting way. Talk about this new version. This one against Republicans is the second ad in a series, it would appear.
Well, I think there's a couple things going on with the Lincoln Project, Nicole. I mean, one of them is that they are in the business really fundamentally. I mean, there's a lot of liberal donor porn that they make and a lot of things that get a lot of Democrats excited to watch. And they've been, obviously, they're very clever. They make clever, cutting ads that have been hilarious. They have fought Trump in a way that a lot of people didn't think you could fight Trump, which was like for every inch and every minute of the news cycle, right? The one place you don't think you can really fight a battle with Donald Trump is in the relentlessness game. He's just everywhere and omnipresent and all around all the time. And they sort of said, well, we're going to go at him exactly that way. We're going to make stuff that's fast, that lives on Twitter. We're going to fight him on his own terrain. But politically, what they're trying to do is something much more narrow, which is to target largely Republican voters and give a small sliver of Republican voters the permission to abandon their tribe and walk away from Donald Trump, right? So, you know, a Donald Trump who gets 91, 92, 93% of Republicans is a dangerous Donald Trump electorally. A Donald Trump who's in the mid-80s with Republicans can't win. And so those guys, along with, you know, Republican voters against Trump and some of these other groups, have been focused on that task, trying to just peel off just enough Republican voters to say to them, it's okay to go against your tribe, to go against your habit, and be against this guy, Donald Trump, who's not a real Republican anyway. And then I think there's the longer-term question for them, which is, if Donald Trump does lose this election, what happens next? And those guys all say, and I have no reason to disbelieve them, but they say that the game is not just getting rid of Donald Trump. The game is fighting a battle for the soul of the Republican Party in which they drive the Trumpists, all of the Trump enablers, drive them into the sea, and then try to remake the party. We'll see if they have that kind of commitment and that they can get the fundraising done to stay viable after an election where they accomplish the first goal. But that's what they say they're in it for the long haul to do.
I mean, listen, Donna, there is not a more talented group of Republicans than Tim Miller, who's running one of the groups, Reed Galen, Steve Schmidt, Stuart Stevens, who's working on the Lincoln Project, the ad we just ran. And I know most of them personally from my own time in Republican campaigns, but John's last point is really important. I mean, their target isn't just Trump. I mean, I think Stuart Stevens' book is called Burn It All Down. I mean, their enemy is Trumpism, is the forces of racism and isolationism and xenophobia. And now you've got white supremacists walking around in the light of day doing interviews with John's colleague Alex Wagner. I mean, they're so brazen. It would seem that the work, and again, we don't know how the election is going to turn out, but should Trump lose, should Republicans lose, a lot of those supporters are still out there, and in some ways they could be more dangerous without an organizer.
Well, and I think part of the challenge is not only are a lot of them still out there, there will still be a lot of them in the House and the Senate because the people who don't lose will be there. And the question is what they do. And I'm not talking about, I mean, there's a very sort of narrow window of people anymore who are even moderates. But I mean, there are a group of Republicans in the trenches in elected office that would have to be removed too, especially in these solidly Republican districts. And what you see is that in those districts, in House seats, you actually have the more moderate candidates running against that right, and it's really tough to beat them there. So I don't know what the strategy is, but I do believe the Republican Party has to be reinvented, and this is about the only play to allow that to happen.
And that's a great point. I mean, Jason, I don't want to lose the thread from where we started, though. Jeff Flake, a conservative's conservative from the once very conservative state, home of John McCain, home of Barry Goldwater, Arizona. This was the first Trump state that I heard the Trump campaign saw as gone. They attributed it to three things. One, Trump's performance on COVID. Two, 4 years of attacks against John McCain. And three, changing demographics in the state. What do you make of this rebuke from Jeff Flake?
He's reading the writing on the wall. I was reading a story earlier this week in the local Tucson paper about border concerts being held to sort of repudiate the racism and bigotry about people being held at the border. This is a state where, you know, you've got 6, 7, 8% of the early voters and people turning in ballots are first-time voters. Arizona is a sign of how far Republicanism has failed in maintaining its control in what was not just a red place, but also fiercely independent voters. That's what you used to have in Colorado. That's what you used to have in Nevada. These are the people who are like, hey, look, don't tread on me. So that's the big mistake that Trump has had. But here's what I think is going to be interesting if we're looking forward, right? We have no idea how this election goes, but this idea, if we go back to Lincoln Project, we want to purge out Trumpists. Let us be clear. You're going to have some survivalist Republicans. If Lindsey Graham keeps his job, you know he's going to hug Joe Biden the moment he gets in office. Lindsey Graham has no mind. He'll go with whoever's in power.
Such a good point.
I promise you, it's exactly what he's going to do.
Be carrying his golf bag next.
He'll be carrying his golf bag next and saying, I always liked Joe Biden. You know, that's what he's going to do, right? But there's going to be a number of Republicans who've always leaned into this. And they're going to say, you know what? The only reason why Trumpism failed is because he was so racist and sexist. If we could just get a less vulgar version of this, we can win again. So that's what I think people need to understand. Trumpism is not dead, even if Donald Trump is removed from office. And that's going to be running up against the changing demographics of Texas, Arizona, and Nevada. Republicans are going to try and reformat that nonsense.
John, you want a last word?
Hey, Nicole.
Yeah.
I just want to say three things.
Yes.
One, Stuart Stevens' book is called It Was All a Lie.
It Was All a Lie.
It's a great book, and It Was All a Lie. It's a brilliant, great title. Two, if you want to hear a really good conversation about all of this, check out my new podcast called Hell and High Water. It's got Stuart Stevens and Mike Murphy talking about the future of the Republican Party and the long-term struggle for the soul of the party and the need to purge the Trumpists and what a long-term fight that's going to be. And number three, have a great weekend, my friend.
You too. Do we have weekends? Do we get weekends? You don't.
We do. For you, you can have a weekend.
I get a weekend.
Get some sleep, Nicole.
So ordained.
I'm going to try to sleep.
Howard.
You sleep too.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks for spending some time with us. Donna and Jason are sticking around. When we come back, Donald Trump's claims that the coronavirus is going away couldn't be further from the truth as cases in this country hit a new single-day record. That's ahead when Deadline White House continues.
Frustrated that clothes come out of the dryer wrinkled? Next time, try Bounce Wrinkle Guard dryer sheets. The world's